I was born in Oakland, California, and I grew up in a small town in Northern California that was about 50 miles from the Oregon border up in the mountains. And my father was in the grocery business. And how I got in this business was when he was a supervisor for a chain of supermarkets. They added a bowling alley to his repertoire, and he decided to put my mother and me in the bowling alley coffee shop. She cooked and I waited tables and washed dishes. And for some reason, the tips that I got waiting tables gave me the bug for the restaurant business because it was pretty easy money. I was probably 15 years old when I did that. When I graduated from college, the last thing in the world I wanted to do was be in the restaurant business because I worked my way through college working in restaurants, and I couldn't wait to graduate and do something else. So I collected unemployment after I got out of college, and the first employment opportunity that I was sent to happened to be somebody that I knew that worked for a hotel company, and I ended up working for that person, and I ended up working for that same hotel company for 30 years. So I was kind of scratching my head, why am I still doing this? But it must have been something I really enjoyed, and it was. I mean, it's something that I always wanted to do and enjoyed doing. I met my wife. She worked for the same hotel company in San Jose, California, and we met there. It's been 18 years ago now. And she had this book that you put on a coffee table called Vermont. And on the front of the cover was this quintessential Vermont village called Newfane. And she told me that's where she grew up. And I just couldn't imagine anybody growing up in something place that pretty, you know. So I was pretty interested in New England. I'd never been here before. And we ended up getting married in Newfane. And probably, I guess it was 2 years later, we had an opportunity. I hadn't planned on retiring from the hotel company, but we had an opportunity to buy a country inn. And it wasn't this one. But we came to New England and looked at several inns and eventually found this one. This is the one that we both fell in love with. And so I ended up leaving the hotel that I'd worked for so many years and bought this place. The thing I like the most about having a small country inn is the intimacy of your connection with your guests. When I worked for a hotel company, I was working at 600-700 room hotels, and I was director of food and beverage and executive chef at the same time of a couple of hotels, and I never had a lot of guest contact except for answering complaints. You know, when it got through everybody else and there was a problem, I was the one that ended up having to answer the problems. So I was only, as they say, only as good as my weakest link, you know. Now, I'm first contact with everything I do here, which is fun. I mean, I cook breakfast in the morning, I cook dinner at night, I do the gardening, I do the maintenance. So everything that I do is in direct contact with the guests. If I don't do my job, obviously, it's my fault. It's not somebody else's fault. And if I do something right, I get the satisfaction of pleasing the guests and seeing their reaction. My biggest surprise really is how nice people are. Working for a hotel company, I dealt with mostly problems. So I thought there was a lot more negativity in the hospitality business, and it was harder to make people happy. And I found out here that you very rarely run into anybody that isn't anything but super nice. And I think the experience I've had working for a big hotel company allows me to win people over who have had a problem because I've had a lot of practice on, you know, making it right. So my best day actually here is because I do miss the hotel business, and we are such a small and intimate place in our restaurant. Although it's busy, we don't do obviously as many covers as you do in a big hotel. But my best days here are really doing the holidays where we do large numbers. I mean, I really enjoy being in the kitchen. We're doing a couple of hundred of people, And it kind of brings back my skills as far as being an executive chef in a hotel. And I need that because I don't get to do that very often. So Mother's Day, Easter, Thanksgiving, those type of days, holidays, are my best days when we're really cranking, and I can put pride in that we're doing the numbers and we're doing them, well. I'll always remember my worst day, and that was in a hotel where we were doing holiday banquets, and that time of the year for hotels is huge. We do sometimes 15, 20 banquets in one night, up from 50 people up to 1,000 people. And while I was, as we call, dishing up banquets in the banquet dish room, I had the general manager come in and screaming that my chef de cuisine in the dining room had just dumped a pot of hollandaise over one of the waiters' heads. So I'm dealing with that and having to go into the dining room and stop an argument with this is back when waiters wore full tuxes. Here's a waiter with hollandaise all over his tux. And the funniest thing about that waiter ended up being the vice president of operations for the whole company a few years later. And we always talk about that and laugh about that now. Well, I mean, my favorite ingredients basically, obviously, is this time of year because I love to garden, and the ingredients that come out of the garden, obviously, are my favorite ingredients. Anything that's really fresh that just came out of the garden, and also Mediterranean influenced ingredients. I love olive oil, and I love things like garbanzo beans and polenta and couscous and things that are more Mediterranean influence, pomegranate molasses, things that basically are on a healthy trend, but also kind of speak how the summer is, It's something I don't get a lot of here, and that's taquerias. Of course, in California, they're all over the place where you can get a big old huge burrito, for lunch. And of course, if you go to Boston or bigger city, they have them around. But that's something I just really love, to get this big old burrito wrapped in foil, and that's my biggest guilty pleasure, I think. Well, nobody could eat if they know they're going to be dying. How are you going to? Actually, I'll tell you the thing that I love the most, and it's kind of, I guess you could call it pagan, is venison. And my favorite part of the deer is the liver. And I have a guy that's been with me for years that goes deer hunting, and our biggest thrill is when he brings the liver to the kitchen, and him and I eat it for lunch, and we'll eat a 2-pound liver for lunch with bacon and onions. But that definitely is my favorite meal, is venison liver. Well, one of the problems about being an innkeeper is you don't get away very often, and I have kids. So when we do have a chance to get away, it's usually friendlies or something like that. So I have to go back a little bit to where my favorite restaurants have been, and number one would be the French Laundry in Northern California. I actually had the opportunity to have lunch there, and this was, I'm going to say, 12 years ago, when it was at its peak, and it was impossible to get reservations. So my boss took us there with a bunch of people in the executive committee, and we had a 12-course lunch there, and it was the most amazing thing that I'd ever experienced in my life. I'll never forget that. And the second thing would have been in Chicago. It was a David Burke restaurant, and it's not there anymore. But he has other restaurants, so we can't feel sorry for him. But I had a dim sum Sunday brunch that was done by a non-Asian person. It was pretty amazing. But it was a full dim sum Sunday brunch where they brought the garridons around to you and had all these fabulous different East and West influenced dim sums. And that's something I'll never forget. And where I would like to go someday would be, because I've always been pretty curious about like the molecular gastronomy type thing going on right now. I've never been to a restaurant that has that influence, but I'd like to go to like maybe WD-50 in New York, and just see what that's all about. That's like Wally Dupree, who is probably the most famous for molecular gastronomy. Not that that's something I would ever do, but I certainly would love to see what that's all about and experience that. I watch a lot of sports, basically, when I get a chance. I'm a Red Sox fan, so I pretty much try to, and they're on late enough at night that I can go and watch a Red Sox game. So I always get crazy when like this time of year when baseball season's back, and I don't think I miss a game. If it's possible, I'll watch it on TV, and I like to watch football. I'm not real big into reality TV, so there's not a lot of good TV on anymore to watch, and I don't get that much chance to watch it. Again, I got kids, and they're watching their shows a lot, so once in a while we have to fight over the TV. So late at night when everything's quiet, and a Red Sox game usually doesn't start till usually 7 to 9 o'clock at night. TV's on mine, so I can watch it. I don't know if you remember this one, but it's called The Big Night. It's an awesome film, and the music, the Louis Prima music and all that old Italian music. I actually have the soundtrack to that thing, and I play that in the kitchen once in a while. And also Babette's Feast is another great food movie that I really enjoyed. And I also saw Julie and Julia, which I thought was a great movie also. So there are a lot of good food movies out there that I enjoy. Well, the reason people should go is when you have 40 or 50 great chefs showing off, what better food are you ever going to find? And that's basically what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to show each other what we know and what we can do. We're not going to give you, our second best. We're going to do our best thing we possibly can. So what a huge opportunity that is. Everything that you find there is going to be great quality and great ingredients and something that the chef has really given a lot of thought to. So there's no reason not to go.